Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you would like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. So today, our guest is William. Hi, William.
Hi, Judith. How are you?
I am good, thank you. So, William, tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm William Villaloboos. I'm originally from South America. I've been living in the UK for I think over 10 years now, over a decade. Prior to that, I was in the States, and I was basically I spent the last 15 to 20 years, designing and getting involved in the world of design. I trained as an architect, and then later on, I went on to lead design teams for different kinds of design, whether that was product design, brand design, interior design. So that's basically it. I mean, my whole life has been all about creating things through the process of design.
Interesting. So, do you think if you had a maverick design, it would make a difference to the kind of output that people have?
Yeah. So that's an interesting one because I think so. I think I tend to see the world in a way in which I think that everything is design, or everything somehow can be adapted to the systems that design brings on. So when I'm looking at the company that we run, which is the Futures.io, we're always thinking how we can create systems or tactics or strategies around the processes. So not only people are motivated and inspired to do the things that they need to do and they need to achieve, but also how we can manage different situations with customers in which we need to deliver. So from the point in which we're speaking to someone via email because they need something for the next day, and that's usually a customer, all the way until how we're talking to developers and how we get to, establish a relationship in which anyone that is not in the team basically producing the main product, which is design. So in this case, developers, admin people, et cetera, feel entitled or power to lead. So since inception, I'm always thinking, how can I make everyone in my team a leader, or how can I make them feel like they can lead? And that's really important. So from the, right off the bat, since the first meeting we have when we hire them, we say, we are here trying to create leaders. There's a lot of people that would like to just do one thing or two things, and that's fine. But also be mindful that in order for us to grow, we would like you to start, showing up, raising your hand, be present and let everyone know that you exist. And one of the things that we do in that case, and it happens a lot, is that we always say, perception is reality. So if you are communicating with the team and you're the person that speaks the least, that's fine. That means that it's fine that you're insightful and you're taking it all in, but you have to be a person that always somehow makes yourself known as a person of influence within the large team. And in order to do that, you probably have to be speaking and saying good morning every time you show up, and saying, how can I help in this? How can I help in that? And be proactive in your answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you said there that was interesting. So it's not just the maverick design of the product you do for a client. You're actually trying to do a maverick design of the workplace in the way that the individuals are treated and your expectations. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it's all about the culture that we create. I think there's a couple of things. There's operations, and then there's operations, and then there's the product. a good product, I think we have to have leaders that believe in what we're producing. And in order to have good operations, we have to have, I think, a certain kind of leadership mode of looking at the world in order to approach each task, knowing that you're an in-betweener. Or how would you call it? I call it a bridge. You're the person in between two worlds, and those two worlds are, let's say, if you're in operations, you're between the customer base and on the other side you have the designers, and these two groups have different languages. So when you're operating, you are literally that bridge, you're that connector, and you have to be able to speak both languages. So you're in that sense, you're multilingual. And multilingual, not in the sense of like you speak different languages, literally, but you can actually understand the culture within the design team and the culture of the expectations that are created by customers. And that's super important. And so, in terms of I think that's when the concept of Maverick plays well, because to me, from the concept that I've seen, a Maverick relates to somebody that is always trying to break through, trying to pierce through something that is a big idea. And to me, a Maverick is somebody that not only motivates and inspires, but is somebody that creates an ecosystem in which everyone feels compelled to achieve a certain vision or a certain goal, and that is achieved through believing, like literally. And that belief comes from somebody that, in order for everyone else around you to believe something, I think you really have to believe what you're saying and what you're doing. So it comes from that. It comes from that clarity as well.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that's a really good assessment of especially Socialised Maverick. And one thing that really struck me when you were saying that it's important to have leaders that believe in the product. I look at some of the leaders that I've, when I was in corporate life working with or having to manage or lead, and a lot of managers aren't leaders and they don't believe in what the company is doing. And it really shows, it becomes almost impossible to motivate a team when you don't really care yourself what's going on.
Right, yeah.
So how do you ensure that your organisation isn't like that and that you actually have real leaders that can be a person of influence? How do you make someone a person of influence? Is it possible?
Well, it's funny you say that. That is I mean, I am really hoping that it's possible, because I am every week, on the constant basis trying it. So, it is something that I strive for. It is something that I look towards to achieving, and it is something that I really, it could be probably challenging at times, but I think it comes down to the expectations. It doesn't come down to expectations. I think it comes down to each single individual's way of looking at the world, and I think that that way of thinking can be shaped, or it can be influenced, and I think that people come from different walks of life when they come into our team, and our goal, my goal, is to show them what we got and where we want to go, and see how I can create an environment in which they can actually believe the same thing once. And sometimes it may take a while. Sometimes it may take longer than you may want to. But once it clicks on them, once you show them the benefits, then they'll start to believe that thing, that, this is bigger than myself. This is not only about me. This is about a tribe, a group of people that are striving to reach a certain goal in a commonality. And I think it takes sometimes, depending on the person. Some people come in with a huge drive, a huge amount of drive, and that's good. Some other people only come with the drive without the actions to back that energy. So then, to those people, you have to teach them structure and systems, so they can put them in place. Therefore, they can see that their drive can actually have results. If those results are expressed in the world, then that sense of achievement will motivate them and catapult them to feeling, okay, hey, I'm really helping my tribe and my world to be better. And this is thanks to, I was really organized this week or this month, or this is to this specific strategy. So yeah, I actually believe nothing is impossible. So with that mentality, I have to always, and I always believe that, everything is achievable. So, I don't underestimate people. I don't think that they will not be able to achieve anything. I just try to go deep down into what things are bothering them. And sometimes it can be simple things like what's happening at home or in the relationships in lives. And then if we can go to the core of that, I think then we can actually find out what emotional needs are there, or what emotional things are pushing them to be so driven. If you cater to those emotional things that drive them to be a force of nature, then I think it's an easy way. But then the hardest part I guess is to try to find that core.
Yeah, and as an individual, you need to want to be able to do that as well, because not everybody wants to, unfortunately. But it sounds like you've got a good mix there in your organisation. So, do you think there's a benefit to your end customer having the right internal ecosystem?
Yeah. I think I think it's a benefit to everyone. Yeah, for sure. You know, any market, and in our market is because we produce design and audiovisual work and graphic design and things like that, and it's a very personal thing sometimes because we work directly with a lot of our customers are like the actual owners of their businesses. It's not an employee. Sometimes they are, but most times it's the owner of a business. And when you're talking about the way they portray their image, or the way they show what their company is, and this is what we do. We create the face to their stories. We create the graphics and the things that they put out there in the world, social media or online or in print. That's a personal thing because it reflects all of their story and who they are. So we take it really seriously, and we understand that in order for us to be a good tailor, to put on them the right suit, we have to really love making suits,
Yes.
And so we have to really love our craft. So, whether it's through the process of interviews or in the process of training, we try really hard to make sure people are really inspired, not only by design as a vehicle, but also by the message of the customer. So every customer is different. Every customer has a different product or service that they want to portray in the world in terms of what we do. And we need to really understand at the core what is their emotional attachment to it, and where does it come from, and what they want to achieve with it. So in a way, it's symbiotic. So because at the same time as I am trying to have my team be driven by a vision, and us understanding them and at the core what emotional drive they have, I'm having them learn what is the emotional drive that the customer has. If you can achieve to connect those two, I think that's when the customer really, really benefits. And we have cases on that happens a lot, and they can see like, wow, we can see that the way that you do this thing for us is it has more, they will say, like heart into it, or passion into it, or love into it, as opposed to what we had before. For example, a lot of people may serve you in a way that they just are like the bridge between you and the tool. So they just, oh, do you need this? So they will just do something with the tool and give it to you. We're not doing that. We had to have designers. We had to have believers, and it's such a subjective thing. And also design is such an emotional thing. If you look around you right now, wherever you're sitting, every single piece that you may have around you is a result of something that caused an emotion on you. A lot of those things, maybe it's a sofa, maybe it's a table, are utility things, but perhaps the frame for your pictures, or perhaps the color that you chose for your sofa has an emotional impact to you. And we are constantly looking at that, and that's designed for us. So if we understand that you surround yourself with things that have an emotional impact on you, therefore you surround yourself with design. And in order for you to surround yourself with design, which which is an emotional decision in a sense, then we understand that we have to understand you as a human being at the core of who you are. Does that make sense?
It does. So you think the success of that is all about how you lead your people? I mean, how do you get the emotional impact sort of translated for the employees within your firm? Do you see what I mean? So
yes.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I mean, I always say that I'm just the result of my failures. So, and the reason I say, which
That's a
is true,
very Maverick
we just,
thing.
listen, no, but
Yeah, it's a very Maverick thought. It's like, because socialized Mavericks aren't afraid of failure. They see it as a pathway to success.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, yeah, just, I learned a while ago that, the best way for me to achieve something is to make myself vulnerable to that situation,
Hmm.
in a sense, and understand my strengths and weaknesses that I'm fronting, I guess, on that specific moment, but not stay there and just actually make sure that
Yes.
I act upon it. That's the difference between a lot of things that decisions we make. But yeah, so at an emotional level, uh, I'll give you an example. So as I said, I'm a result of my failures, and the reason I say that is because before, years ago, when I was working for somebody else, um, I remember being given the opportunity to lead a team of 15 people or something like that. And those
Hmm.
15 people had three leaders. So these three leaders led five people each. So I was on top of that. And I was that bridge. I was the guy between the customers who were not easy customers, and I was between a bunch of designers. And the designers had their design leaders. One day, and this is years ago, but one day, uh, somebody just said, I'm taking my holidays and I'm going away for this amount of time, blah, 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 blah. And I'm looking at my schedule and I'm looking at what that person is telling me. And I'm realizing that that person is going on holiday, right at a very hard time, a very difficult time that we needed to deliver something. And I immediately know, I immediately went by the book, and this was an issue. This was a failure on my part, but it was a learning experience. And I said, that person didn't have to come to me for approval of holidays. They had to go do somebody in HR or whatever. And that person said, I'm going on holiday. And I look at my spreadsheet and it said, this is exactly the days that I need you around. And I tell the person, I need you on these days. We have to deliver this to the customer. This is really important. Blah blah blah. And that person, which was older than me, which was another thing, stood up in front of me and then started going at it. Started going like literally red face, raising their voice, saying, "You're not doing this to me. I can't believe this is happening." Blah blah blah. And my skin I froze. I was like, "What is happening? What did I do?" So I couldn't. At that moment, I was younger, and I was like, what did I just do wrong? But in my mind, I was like, I did the right thing. I'm showing you that you had to give me at least 2 weeks and an announcement on these things before we have a deadline, blah blah blah. But you went, and I felt like he went behind my back and told HR to get the holidays without me looking at it, blah blah blah. So then that same week, I went to one of my mentors, and I was sitting down at the table, and the first question she asked me, and I told her the situation. It's like, look, this is what happened. I went by the book. I did everything right. That person didn't ask for permission in the right time. We're in trouble because we have to present this to a client. And my mentor said, William, did you ever stop to think how that person is feeling, let's say, in the last few days, in the last hours, in the last month? Did you ever did it ever cross your mind that that person perhaps is burned out? That person is working a lot? Did you ever care to ask that person, is everything okay at home? Did you ever care to ask that person, how are things with the family, with your relationship? If you don't know any of those items, how can you uh, make a concrete decision on how to deal with a situation like that? And that stuck with me because that's why I'm telling you the story today for a long time. And that's when
Hmm.
I realized that, wow, yeah, and leadership is not only about going by the technicalities of going by the book. It is actually about understanding that, you are sitting across somebody else that actually probably has a job because they either are passionate about the job, but they also get retributed economically by it. And that economic, financial retribution helps them travel to see their parents, or make them buy the house of the dreams, or it makes them achieve something emotional that they want to get done in their lives. And that wasn't clear to me when I was younger. And that's when I realized that in order for me to actually have my own team, I have to actually take that into account.
That is really good learning, especially at a young age, because I see that a lot where leaders can become, or I would say managers would become so obsessed with the end goal that they forget there's people that is driving that end goal. I remember I was a senior manager somewhere, and the director, I was working with, there was a company that we trying to decide if I was going to buy or not buy, and I was doing all this additional hours, all this additional work, and I was also I was actually doing stuff out of my remit as well. So I was looking in functional areas because the managers there couldn't do it. So I was doing other people's jobs to get this. And I was working really, really hard, and I remember having to be in London for something like 7:30 in the morning to go to the lawyers, and I was in the cab with the director, and he said, "Oh, you look really tired." And I said, "Yeah, I'm really tired. I've worked so many hours. Because I had to study the other department's work to understand how it impacted. Because I didn't, I wasn't working there. So I'm really tired." And he said, "Yeah, I am as well, because I went out last night." And I was just, I remember looking at him going, "I can't see how that computes." And then he did a long sort of tirade of all how hard he was working, and all the work he was working was like, I took this client out for a meal, and then I went golfing with that client, and I'm like, you really don't get it, do you? And he was very much kind of, yeah, and when we finish with this meeting, and I want you to do this, I want you to do that, and it's like, you don't understand, you don't get it, do you? You don't realise that not only and it's also a director that owns part of the company as well. So whatever was happening obviously would end up in his pocket. And I just thought, you're completely tone deaf. You do not understand what it has meant to me and my time and stuff to basically be living in this place for a couple of months, and also run my own department with its staff and its responsibilities. And his only way of aligning how hard that work would be was because of all the nights out he had to go to. And I'll be thinking, I'm normally coming to work at 7:00, and I have to travel into London for 7:00, and you're rolling up about 11:00 because you had a hard night. It's just like, seriously.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. There's always we have to understand the whole story, I guess, for everyone.
Yes, and if we don't, people will revolt eventually.
Yeah, I guess to me, I was like, when I understood that, then I realized, it makes so much sense. but it's one of those moments when you're like, that makes so much sense. But then you feel a bit like, how did I not know that? Or why didn't I not understand that? Because it is so obvious and it makes so much sense.
Well, and you feel almost like young.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's interesting. And so when you go down that path, and you realize, there's always these terms, B2C, B2B, and I heard one that said it's all about H to H, which is like, at the end of the day, it's human to human. It's not business because at the end of the day, there's humans behind the customer desk. There's the help desk. So there's humans behind everything, regardless if we're going into artificial intelligence or whatever. There is always feelings attached to things, at least in this state of, at least nowadays. And if I can add a little bit to that, when you're dealing with the emotional bit, I guess the next step is to try to understand a bit more without being intrusive. You always have to ask somehow for permission, like, hey, we're going to only speak about this if it's needed or if it's necessary, or not necessary, but if you're okay with it. But a lot of things come from the insecurities that are built not only by the individuals themselves, but probably by the surrounding environment that helps reinforce those insecurities. But it usually comes from within. And I read something recently that I find it in people that have been working for a while and they're moving towards more senior positions. I found that there is always this question of, Am I reaching an age in which all my friends have achieved this, and that, and I haven't, and things like that. And I read something really insightful recently that, I wrote something about it, and I called it the time zone. And it was, it kind of struck a nerve but it says something like, if I am in London and a lot of my friends live in America, for example, which is 5 to 8 hours behind, that doesn't mean that America is slower or that Americans are behind. If someone graduates at age 22, or somebody can graduate at age 22 and wait 5 years to secure a good job, or somebody can become a CEO at age 25, but then live up until age 50. Another person can become a CEO at 50 and live up to 90 years. Someone can be single, someone can get married, and so what? And a big example is Obama retired at 55, and Trump just started a presidential career at 70. So whatever we do, we're basically living in our own time zone, and we shouldn't condemn those around us that that seem to be in our eyes behind or us or in front of us, because at the end of the day we all we're fighting and we're trying to reach our own goals. We're trying to follow our own vision. We're trying to we're racing our own race, as cheesy as that may sound. And that's something that I try to say to people that are jumping from more junior positions to senior positions, because that's a transitional point usually in their lives in which they need to make a big decision for them. Do I commit to you for the long term, or do I make a move? I create my own business or do something else in a different place. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think it's a good place to stop, I think. So thank you for that, William. Will you come back again?
Yeah, anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with William as much as I enjoyed having it. If you'd like to learn more about Mavericks and leadership, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, apply to join the Maverick Paradox exclusive Facebook group. And my website is maverickparadox.com. Find out how willful independence can ultimately change all our futures. Thanks again, and see you soon.